Hello and welcome to ACC's Campus Spotlight. I'm Tim Dittmar, Music Business Performance and Technology Department Chair at Austin Community College and your host for today's show. On Campus Spotlight, we aim to bring in incredible guests to learn from, get inspired, and have some fun. And today is no exception. We have our first musician on the show, Jim Eno in Recording Studio A in our department on the New Highland campus. Jim is the drummer and co-founder of the Austin-grown rock band Spoon, and he's also an accomplished audio engineer and producer. We're excited to hear what he has to say. Welcome to Recording Studio A, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. So I'm curious, at what age did you become connected to music?
Oh boy, pretty young. I remember there was a Buddy Rich video that I saw early on,
okay.
and I was like, man, that guy's crushing it, you know? I wish I could do that, you know? And I've always sort of gravitated towards the drums and music from an early age, but that's my first like drum memory that I remember.
Okay, so at what age did you start playing drums?
Well, I asked for a drum set from my parents for every Christmas, probably for like 15 years or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. But they're like, nah, it's too loud, you know? And so what I would do is I had a pair of drumsticks and I would sit on the couch and I had headphones and I would play along with music like all day. And then my dad had to take up upholstery because I would tear the couch up.
Oh, wow.
And so then he would take the couch in the basement and reupholster it, and then I would do another round.
So you finally got a drum set like at...
Probably 21.
Okay.
Yeah,
You bought your own at that stage.
I bought my own, yeah.
And what was that? What kind of drum set was that?
It was just, I think it was a CB700.
Oh, that was popular back then.
Yeah. I think I bought one of those, and then my roommate was a guitar player, so we had always talked about playing music together, and I'm like, man, I should just go try to buy a kit, yeah.
So was that, where was that, up in Rhode Island? Or was that
no, I was
Houston?
going to school in North Carolina.
North Carolina, okay.
At NC State, and I was doing a co-op program.
Okay.
So I was an electrical engineering major, and I would, every other semester, go to IBM in Manassas, Virginia, and I would work there.
Oh, okay.
So it was up in Manassas, Virginia, where my roommate was playing guitar. So we drove into DC and bought a drum set.
So did y'all have a band? Were y'all jamming?
Well, we just started jamming, but I remember the first day I got it, went down in his basement, went down the stairs, and I was like so excited. I like set it up right at the bottom of the stairs so you couldn't really pass, you know? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's pretty
great.
cool. So did you have any formal training on drums, or you just self-taught?
Not really, yeah, self-taught, but then around, so then I was in North Carolina, I took a few lessons and things like that, but then I moved to Houston to work at Compact Computer, so that was my first job out of school, and I did a lot of classes and sort of jazz training at a Houston Community College.
Okay, yeah.
So I did combo jazz, big band jazz, and stuff like that. Compact had a big band that played in the conference room like every week or so.
Really?
So,
were you part of that big band?
yeah, so I went there, and my first day there, I was like, I don't read music or anything, but I always felt like playing jazz would get me a lot better, be a lot better rock and roll player.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And since I started so late, it would sort of propel me a little faster. So I go to the first day, and there were already two drummers at this big band practice, and sitting behind them, and the instructor called out, "Got to Get You Into My Life." You know that song?
Sure,
With the
sure.
killer horn lines. And,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I know that one. They're like, okay, you play this one. So playing it, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like killing it. You know, I couldn't read music at all.
Right.
And then it stopped, end of the song, and I'm like, oh, okay. So putting my sticks back in my stick bag, and then the song starts up again. I'm like, what's going on? Start playing, and then it finishes again, and the other drummer, one of them, tapped me on the shoulder. He's like, you missed your drum solo. So there was like a 16-bar drum solo.
Oh, and you're just
Since I
like...
couldn't read music, I thought it was the end of the song. So I just get up, and I'm like...
That's pretty classic.
Like the most avant-garde drum solo of any big band.
I like that. So, John Bonham, Ringo,
Yep.
Stuart Copeland, or Neil Peart?
Let's see. I would say Ringo, but Bonham is close second.
Okay, okay, that's good.
Even though I listened to a lot of Rush when I was, started playing and stuff, but
Did you ever have
I can't play that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, most people can't.
Yeah.
Right? Did you ever have a big drum set? Like,
No, not really.
always pretty minimal?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when I got another kit, you set up a couple extra toms or whatever.
Right,
And then you're like, I don't want to carry that crap around.
Yeah.
And I hardly ever hit it, so why use it?
So you said you went to school to be an electrical engineer.
Mm-hmm,
So I'm assuming in your teenage years you spent a lot of time at Radio Shack.
Oh,
Did you
not
have a
really?
No, you didn't have
I can't do anything practical. No, it was just schooling. It's like digital computer design. So
Okay.
my dad was an engineer, so I'm like, I'll do engineering. But
Okay.
I wasn't really, like building things, electronics, or whatever.
Okay,
It was just more
okay.
like, I should go into engineering and let me try electrical.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so when you went into electrical engineering, you knew you wanted to do audio engineering?
No, not
Oh,
at all.
no, not at
not at all.
Okay.
And when I went to school at NC State, I actually took like an analog design class, thinking it would help me with sort of more music kind of things, like amp building and stuff like that. But it was like really, really theoretical and like transistor properties and stuff like that. And I was just like, whew,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So when did you first get into record production?
Well, so I moved to Austin and then met Britt. We played in a rockabilly band called the Alien Beats, Rockabilly Country. After that, he started writing for Spoon, so we started playing shows as Spoon. It's like probably 7 years after I moved to Austin, but
Okay.
So then we were on Matador, then we were on Elektra, and we got dropped by Elektra.
Yeah, I remember all
And
that.
so I knew, like, I wanted the band to be more self-sufficient, but I also wanted something to do when Britt was writing. I wasn't really a session drummer or anything. And anytime we were in the studio, I really liked it. So I bought Pro Tools Audio Media 3 card. Do you remember that? Like way back,
Sure.
Probably like maybe 97 or 8 or so. And then around 2000, I probably started producing other bands.
Okay. Yeah. So you moved from Houston to here to work at Motorola, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So was part of your decision to move from Houston to Austin at that point also have to do with the music scene?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, music scene, like more like cooler things happening and weather. Houston's pretty humid.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Were you besides playing in the big band at Compact, were you playing in a band in Houston?
Not really. Just a little like side kind of stuff. But I would be playing probably like 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Either lessons, combo stuff, or big band stuff.
Okay. So being an electrical engineer, has that helped your career?
No.
Not at all.
No, not really.
Not with
Not really.
wiring or putting together a studio or anything
No,
like
not really.
that?
The only thing it helped me with, maybe, because I get that question a lot, is maybe like in signal flow, being able to understand, mic to mic pre to compressor to
Right.
EQ back
Yeah.
to tape in, whatever.
Yeah.
I tend to have more of a brain for that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know y'all worked with John Crosland early on.
yeah.
And I know y'all ended up at Cedar Creek. Why did y'all end up at Cedar Creek recording?
Oh boy.
Y'all did series of sneaks there, and I don't know if y'all did.
We tracked that there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how we ended up with that. I think John picked it. He knew it with the Neve and everything.
Sure,
So yeah.
And y'all had recorded before the record before over at John's place,
Exactly
right?
right, yeah.
And what was it? I couldn't remember the name of that studio. Was it,
Dogland, maybe? Something
and that
like
was the one in the neighborhood of Cedar Creek, correct?
No, it wasn't near
No?
Cedar Creek. It was.
Oh, okay.
I think it may have been in Hyde Park or something. But it was just his garage. It was his house, and then he had a garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many records did y'all end up doing with John? Do you remember?
2.
Two records?
Yeah. Telephono series of sneaks. It's something about John's studio, which was pretty crazy. How we recorded that. We basically recorded on, I think it was 8-track 1-inch, And then what he would do is he would take those 8 tracks, bounce them down to DAT,
Right.
and then throw the DAT back onto 2 tracks.
Right.
And then
Y'all would have 6 more tracks.
6 more tracks.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing about that is that anything having to do with bass, drums, guitars was baked in to that first bounce.
Right. So
Which is pretty impressive when I go back and like look at it. Like some of those songs sound pretty wild, and he was doing stuff on that DAT print knowing that we could never go back once we put it on there and started overdubbing.
Right.
You know? So I felt like John had a good, like, in production, you always want to know like what the final product is. At least you want to have it in your head so you can shoot and get that way. And I feel like John definitely had
I
that.
think also that era of engineering kind of led more to that.
Oh, yeah,
right?
totally,
Because
yeah.
you know, there wasn't automation,
Yeah,
you know, to the
yeah.
degree there is now, where
Yeah.
you can save everything. So it's like you made a lot more decisions on the fly, like
Exactly.
that. You kind of had to.
Yeah, and he didn't have a ton of outboard gear, so you know a lot of stuff we were doing, and this is even for a lot of the Spoon records. It's just we always talk about committing to tape and like getting the sound we want on the going in.
Right.
Because you work with a lot of people, and they're like, let's just record everything sort of really clean, and then we'll do it in the mix. But
Yeah.
it doesn't really work because you need the sound to influence what the next sound is. You know,
Right.
you use them as like jumping off points, and if you have everything, you know, it's hard to predict what it's going to sound like.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense. So, so you said earlier that you pretty much have always played a small drum kit, like a 4-piece kit.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you use any electronic pads or triggers or samples or anything?
I think sort of just on They Want My Soul and Hot Thoughts I was using a little bit, but we've sort of gone away from that.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't do any like play to tracks or anything like that. you
Okay,
know?
that's
Yeah.
good to know. So you
Oh,
so
yeah.
live you don't use a click or anything, but in the studio you
No, yeah, in the studio I definitely do. Live, what I'll do, and I've been doing this since like maybe the mid 2000s or so. I have a Tama rhythm watch that I program in tempos, so I can hit next song real quickly, and it will give me the tempo to start
do.
the
Oh, I
song.
like that. Yeah.
And the reason for that is like if you're going from a song like, you know, Got Nothing to My Babe or
Right.
something, those tempos are so different
Right.
that the slower song will always be faster. And it gives you like a reference
Yeah.
for, no, this is how we've always done it. So,
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Have you ever played with like a light?
no, I haven't done one. Well, I used to like keep the Tama rhythm watch on when
So
I
you
was
could see
playing, so
that.
I could sort of glance and look.
Yeah.
But now I have it going to my in-ears, so
Okay.
I just hit it off at the top and then
And then you turn it off, and then you kill it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I like that
yeah,
idea.
yeah.
So I know that you're endorsed by CNC Drums. How did you end up with CNC Drums?
Let's see. Rob Pope is from Lawrence, Kansas, and CNC is out of Kansas City.
Right.
So they're pretty close friends. And I even forget what record this was on. Pretty, you know, maybe, yeah, I think it was They Want My Soul, maybe? No, Transference, I think, is when I contacted Jake at CNC. And, you know, you're always looking for endorsements. So, and
Sure,
CNCs
sure.
are good sounding kits. So, and also Istanbul, I'm endorsed by them. I think cymbal endorsement is more important than drums, to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's pick up that. Let's continue talking right after the break.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Jim Eno.
My name is Wade Stevens. I am attending ACC right now in their music department, and I'm transferring to UT in the fall to finish my bachelor's in jazz studies. And I don't think I would have made it without like the help of the faculty here and like everyone pushing me to be better. I think the thing I'm gonna miss the most about being at ACC is probably getting to work with my private teachers. Our lessons are great. Like working with Mike is awesome because like that dude just has the best approach to drums that is, it blows your mind. It changes your perception on the instrument. it's cool to have teachers that like open your eyes to like how good you really are.
I already know what you're gonna ask. Stop.
Don't worry.
Welcome to ACC Student Beat, your source of tips to get you through the month.
So, shall we continue?
Let's go.
Welcome back to Campus Spotlight. I'm Tim Dittmar, your host, and I'm hanging out with Jim Eno today. And before the break, we were talking about his endorsement with CNC Drums. So how long have you been with CNC Drums?
So that would be about 14 years, I guess.
Okay.
If I got them around Transference, which
All
maybe
right.
I did.
And your cymbal endorsement, you were saying?
Around the same time.
Around the same time.
Yeah, Istanbul. And I feel like the good thing about Istanbul and my relationship with them is they send me things for the studio too. So like, splashes and odd things, for
right.
if you're like, oh man, I need a sound that sounds like a trash can, then I can like make that sound,
Oh, that's cool. So here in our department, one of the degrees that we have is audio engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, most of people tuning in might be interested in talking about how you mic up your drums typically, since you're an engineer. And so I thought I'd ask you, what's your typical go-to mic setup when you're going to set up your drums?
Oh boy. I mean,
I know it probably varies.
Yeah, it varies a lot based on the song, obviously, but I tend to like sort of drier, closer sounds. Mm-hmm. So I'll use I have a Unidyne, like a 57 for the snare. I'll use maybe a U67 for overheads, or I also have KM64s or U64s for overheads if I want them stereo. Sometimes I use a Coles overhead. What else will I do?
Do you ever mic the bottom of the snare as well as the top?
Sometimes, yeah, KM56 or an SM23, which is a stereo, like a stereo KM56.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's cool. The thing, I think Mike McCarthy would do it where you would take one capsule as the bottom snare mic and then take the other capsule and distort it. And then they're in phase, obviously.
Oh, yeah,
So that would be your distortion mic too.
Okay.
And then sometimes I'll do like a D19 or something like that as like right above the kick drum and distort that as like a distortion. I usually have like a kit a mic like maybe 5 feet in front of the kit that's like a 47 or something like that, like a room kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And close mic toms?
Yeah, usually 421s or C12As, I think I use. I have 267s. Sometimes I'll go crazy and do that, but usually I use the 67s for other stuff, either overhead, room mic,
So when you're getting distortion on, you're talking like the snare mic, are you doing that on the preamp or?
A little of both. So I have like or different kinds of distortion. I have a color box from JHS. It's a pedal. I'll use that. I have a Culture Vulture, which is a really good distortion, tube distortion. I'll sometimes distort the Neve. I have a Ampex preamps from Tape Machines, like a 350, and I'll use that for distortion, say. So a lot of different options,
So we talked about your go-to mics on your drums. What would be some go-to like compressors or EQs that you might throw into that chain?
Yeah. So I mean, I have a Neve, so I'll use 1064s, which are my EQ modules for that. But I also a few years ago I put in 24 channels of Leon Russell's API into my console. So
into the Neve?
Into the Neve.
Oh, okay.
So I took out the patch bay, so I have 24 Neve 1064s and 24 312 and 550s.
Oh, that's cool.
550As for my for APIs.
Yeah.
So I can do, API for top snare, Neve for bottom snare, whatever, I can mix and match for that. So I tend to do like hardly any EQ, maybe a little bit of compression to tape, I mainly work a lot of just getting the mic in the right place and getting the sound like, sort of without a bunch of bells and whistles,
So when y'all typically cut a song, Jim, would everybody be playing? Do you get scratch tracks off of everybody else?
Again, it's all different
Just
ways.
depends.
Yeah, like sometimes there'll be a demo and I'm playing along with a demo. Sometimes it's all of us together. We did the latest record a lot like that. Yeah. Oh, I have one more mic to mention. I have a SM69, I think. Yeah. And it's like a stereo 67 sort of.
Okay.
And that is up about probably 25 feet in my live room. And it's on a catwalk, so we call that the catwalk mic. So it's a stereo
Nice.
sort of big room sound, but it's a large diaphragm tube mic, so it's like more full-bodied and warmer than like something else.
So another topic that a lot of our students can relate to is having a home studio. I know that your studio, Public Hi-Fi, started off kind of like in a garage where a lot of our students would start their studio.
Yep.
How did you take it from that home studio to what it is now? And talk about that.
I knocked it down. Yeah. It was right before Gaga, and I was looking at being more active in production, quitting my day job. I was looking at doing that too. And I felt like if I was going to quit my day job, I needed like a bunch of things to do besides just drumming in a band,
Right.
So the idea of producing records and having like a quality professional studio was really appealing. And then it also kept the costs down if we were making a record. But the other thing is if I'm touring, I could rent that studio out.
Right.
So that was the other idea. I wanted to make it so that was possible. The one-room studio was a little bit of a stretch to get people in there to do that. So I knocked the studio down, used an architect, and this guy Steve Durr out of Nashville designed my control room. And it's great. I got to like incorporate a lot of things from studios all over that I've been to and sort of bring them into mine,
So what challenges did you have? Because I'm assuming it's attached to your house, or
No, it's a separate.
Well, I don't mean attached to your house, but
It's on
on
the
the
same
same
property,
property,
yeah.
right? And it's in a residential neighborhood. What challenges have you had being in a residential neighborhood in Austin?
The only issue I've really had was parking. That's
Yeah.
sort of the only issue. But my neighbors are like super cool. Yeah, so I haven't had a lot of trouble.
No knocking on the door like, hey!
No, because it's a room inside of, it's a room inside of a room.
So it's super
It's
isolated.
pretty isolated, My family would probably complain before the neighbors because the house is closer than any of the other neighbors.
Right,
So,
right.
or if I'm there, I'm like, hey guys, I think the door's open. It's pretty loud,
Right,
that
right.
kind of thing.
So when did you officially open the doors for Public Hi-Fi?
I can't remember the year, but it was probably about a month before we started tracking Gaga. Because that's when I didn't quit my job. My company went out of business.
Okay.
I was doing like microprocessor design, and it was a startup, and they went out of business. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to look for another job,
Right.
It's one thing John Crosland told me a long time ago. I'm like, when do I quit my day job? He's like, don't worry, Jim, it's going to be black and white. And so the idea that my company going out of business a month before we do the next Spoon record seemed like
And also,
pretty obvious.
and that's probably around 2006. Y'all
think
were,
so, yeah,
y'all were fairly successful at that point,
yeah.
right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So around 2006, speaking of, that's also when y'all did like the super horn-laden record.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah. So how did you get to that? Were you hanging out with some horn people? And you're like, hey, let's do a horn. Like,
No, I don't think so. One of the things was working with John Bryan on The Underdog. He, we had the approach of doing it with horns. I don't know. I feel like the early Spoon records, we were always like maybe thinking that horns and pianos and reverbs are not cool or something. And so you can see from Girls Can Tell on, we're embracing more of that, you know.
Yeah,
from
instead
the
of just being a
production
straight
side.
indie rock
Yeah,
band to
exactly
like, hey,
right.
we can be
Yeah.
add more to that.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I feel like one of the things when a band has multiple records is they tend to sound very similar. They hit like a comfort pattern of this is what our band sounds like.
Right.
We, you know, tend to be like, we've done that before, you know, let's try to do something different. So we try to switch it up in the studio and not to repeat ourselves. And I feel like that's also for us to make it not as boring, you know, try something new, you know, and then you can hear that in the recording. It sounds like we're having fun, you know.
Yeah. So how do y'all arrive at that decision of like what this record's gonna sound like? I mean,
Yeah. Well, we have like fun conversations up front, but you never know until you get in it, and then you work on things like on a song by song basis. Right. So then all of a sudden you're near the end, and you're like, oh, this record sounds sort of like this, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right. So what challenges do you face when you're having to be an engineer, producer, drummer? I mean, how do you wear all those hats?
Well, on the Spoon records, we always use another producer.
Okay.
We always use an outside producer. So that's good. I don't like engineering when I'm drumming anyway, because I'm concentrating on performance, and I would rather have someone else, whether it be Brit or whether it be some producer, saying, yeah, that's the take, or I know I can build the take from what you did. And then I'll be like, okay, I'm out of here, you know, and then I can go back in and be like, okay, let's switch that out or whatever, you know. I feel like it's very different being on the performing side to being on the engineering production side, so.
Right.
You know. But then when I'm not tracking, I feel like it's all like a more like, you know, community gang related, you know, like anyone has an idea, we usually try it. Like, hey, listen to this reference, what about something like that, you know?
Right.
Band members, producers, whoever can, you know, it's a pretty creative environment, you know.
Oh, that's cool. So how do y'all decide on a producer? Like, I mean, because y'all have a different producer, like, typically on all your stuff, and do y'all go, hey, you know, we really love this record, let's get this person to do this?
Yeah, like if we look at like what Dave Fridman, we've always loved, you know, the stuff he does, like Soft Bulletin.
Oh,
and,
incredible records.
MGMT record is crazy. So, you know, it was always like a little bit fascinating for us, being like more of a minimal type of band,
right?
To work with someone like Fridman, who is like, you know,
Flaming Lips,
you know, and like a lot of tracks and innovation and really cool sonic landscapes, you know. So, and also you don't know what a producer brings versus the band. You don't really know. You hear a record and you're like, oh, that's the producer, but you know, maybe he was laying on the couch the whole time. You just never know. So, but with Dave, we contacted him, and he has a studio up in upstate New York, outside of Buffalo, and so that was, you know, we did a couple of records with him, but that was a little, I mean, it was hard because you go up to a place where you're sort of secluded in the woods. You want to grab a beer after, and you have to drive 20 minutes to town, and it's like there's one bar, and you know, it was a little taxing in snow and stuff like that, you know. So, you know, and Dave won't travel. I mean, we were like going to Mexico City, and he's like, and we're like, hey, do you want to come down and do a track with us? He's like, did you know that Mexico City is built on a volcano? And we're like, okay, so you're not going, right? He doesn't fly or anything, so yeah.
So that's a good stopping point. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with more Jim Eno.
Turn your creativity into a career. At ACC, you'll get hands-on experience with state-of-the-art studios and software for radio, TV, and film, game development, music business, performance and technology, and more. Turn your talents into in-demand skills and make connections. Creative careers start here.
Well, first, congratulations. Have y'all cheered enough? Have y'all gotten excited enough? So clap real big for yourselves.
Career Scholars, when I was doing the application process, reached out to me, and they gave me a lot of the guides and benefits that they offered. And honestly, there was a generous financial package. They were giving me a lot of updates. So I took it in stride, and I said, yeah, any help can work, because it's really tough doing it by yourself.
ACC reached out to me about this new program that they were trying to launch with National Instruments, and I applied for it, not knowing what to expect. I got the offer to start off as the first person that will be graduating with NI, and with 2 other high school graduates that were just coming out of high school. They hired 3 of us on the spot, and today I get to graduate and start full-time with them.
It's been really helpful because I have my kids and a lot of expenses during the pandemic. It's really a big help for me.
It's important to have someone in your corner that can tell you, like, this is what really needs to get done, and also provide you with the resource you can to help yourself. At the end of the day, it's a win-win for everybody.
I would encourage anybody, that just need help, join this program. It's really helpful. It helps you, your family, money-wise, advising, it's everything. You should join.
Welcome back to Campus Spotlight. I'm hanging with Jim Eno, and we're going to continue our conversation right now. So before the break, we were talking about producers, and you told me that you had a pretty awesome John Bryan story.
Oh, man. I don't know if it's that good, but I do have a...
Oh, I'm sorry. I oversold it?
I know, exactly. But we worked with John Bryan on a couple of tracks, and there was one track we were working on with him. And John Bryan is a very, bubbly guy, and he's always like, okay, everyone, let's all go do percussion in the live room together, or whatever. He'll do something like that. And he had this idea of, a rhythm track that's like a kind of thing, but not drums, just sort of on some sort of instrument. He's like, Jim, come with me. And we go out into this live room, and it's massive. It's this huge place. And he is going through these Tupperware boxes, and there's probably 30 of them, and he's throwing tambourines and shakers. Finally finds this box, and he hands it to me. He's like, here, play with your fingers on this. And it's like a felt box, so I have it between my legs. And there's a Elam 251, right?
Right.
It's like a $25,000 microphone.
Over
right here. Yeah, right here. I'm like, okay. So I'm playing this thing, and as I'm halfway through the track, there's this label on it, and it says property of the Grammys. And I'm like, okay, well, that's weird, So the take is done, and I turn it over, and it's the Grammy he won for the Kanye West record.
Wow.
And I'm like, John, is this the real Grammy or a duplicate? He's like, oh, no, that's the real one. I just keep it in that percussion crap over there,
Wow.
So he keeps his Grammy.
In a
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that was as awesome as you made it.
No,
out to be,
it was
Tim,
pretty.
but,
It was good. So let's continue a little bit more about producing. I know you produce a lot of people, including Walker Lukens, who's doing awesome as well. What do you do for pre-production?
I can talk about one record I did was the Heartless Bastards record. I did a record with them, and I feel like that had a really good style of how to do a record. We wanted to track it on tape, so we wanted to make sure the band was super tight. And so we did a lot of pre-production, so I would go to their rehearsal space. And one of the things about when you look at a record versus a live show, when you're in a club, you're drinking, you have other people around you, you have sound coming at you. There's a lot of stimulus and a lot of excitement coming at you. Right. So as a producer, you have a song or a record, you have to generate excitement through the stereo image, basically. Right. And that's it. So it's a hard thing to do. So for me, what I try to do is introduce new elements to keep the listener sort of interested. So for pre-production, maybe what you're doing is you're hearing the rhythm guitar player, and he just plays the whole time through the track. And you're like, okay, well, let's break this up. You're going to do this verse, we're gonna double track the chorus, so you're gonna drop out there, building up a guitar part. We're gonna use a different tone for the bridge, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
Keyboard parts, okay, we need something that's gonna sound like this, you work on that. But I did a lot of pre-production with them, probably 3 practices, and then they went and did a month of touring with the Drive-By Truckers, opening for them, only playing the new record, even though
That
it wasn't
helps a
even out.
lot.
Oh my God, yeah. So they came in, and I was like the critical path. They were so tight. So I would be getting sounds and stuff like that. And when I finally said, okay, I think we got it, come in and listen, and they were like, yeah, it sounds good, it would be like first or second take because they were so rehearsed.
Yeah.
One of the things about when you're working with a band and tracking like that, you, as a musician, you don't want to have to question where you are within the arrangement. Mm-hmm. So, you may be playing and all of a sudden you're in a chorus and you're like, is the second verse next or is the bridge next?
Right.
And if you don't know the song well enough, you can hear that hesitation and you don't sound as confident. You play the song a lot, and that's,
That goes away.
where you are, it's like, so I feel like that is a very important thing. That's happening less and less now.
Pre-production.
No, just bands that can play their instruments all the way through,
Right.
because of Pro Tools and because of, hey, I played it in the first verse, just copy it over the second verse, that kind of stuff,
Do you see that as a negative or a positive?
Yes, definitely a negative, yeah.
Yeah.
Negative, I mean positive for speed.
Right.
Sometimes I do that. If I do it, it may be more for band, like sort of electronic kind of records, where it's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. Let's do that. But I'm a firm believer of like trying to get a musician to play, and to hash out a part and make it as real as possible,
Yeah. Don't you think that's one of the reasons that, for instance, 90% of music that's downloaded is old music, 70s, 80s music and stuff,
Yeah,
because
could be,
of
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
the musicianship and
Right, yeah.
that intangible. There's nothing that says vibe. There's not a button you can
Right,
push,
yeah.
like you're talking about, right?
totally,
and so,
totally.
how do you get that vibe? It's the band playing together, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when I did a couple of Chick 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 records, and they're like a dance band out of New York, and very first day, the keyboard player is like setting up all this MIDI stuff. And I'm like, why are you doing that? He's like, well, I want to be able to like change stuff or whatever. And I was like, okay, because we can just punch in, or whatever. We're on Pro Tools even,
Right.
So, but as it came around, I was just like, hey, you should just play this. And we ended up moving that way where he was just playing everything. We didn't have to worry about MIDI. It was more performance-based. It wasn't math, when you're doing MIDI,
sure.
it becomes like,
Yeah.
So-
So did he end up enjoying that as well?
I think so, yeah. I think so. Yeah.
They apparently they got you to do another record, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I don't think he's in the band anymore either, though. So,
Okay. Well, I definitely want to touch on touring.
Yeah.
Part of our program here, we offer a degree in live sound and stage production, and we have classes in like tech and tour managing, stage production, lighting.
Yeah.
And so I figured you could share some of your touring experiences with us.
Yeah.
So how many people do y'all travel with in the Spoon caravan or camp now?
So we have 12 now total people with us.
Okay.
So let's see, 5 band members. Let's see, lighting guy, 2 backline guys. Let's see, tour
In
manager.
backline, you mean by like techs, like
Yeah.
drum tech, guitar teching?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
Let's see, tour manager, merch, monitors, and I knew I was going to miss one. Oh, front of house.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's our crew. We would love to have more, but a bus sleeps 12.
Okay.
So we're sort of always pushing this hard limit. We would probably get another tech to help with like setting up lighting and stuff like that.
Yeah. So how has that changed when y'all first started touring? I imagine at first it was you and Britt driving a van, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Did y'all have a trailer and?
Yeah, we did everything like that. We used to do like 2 minivans too, or 15 passenger with minivan, as we started getting bigger, But trailer, A little bit, but mostly we had like a loft system built into our van,
Right.
where I had a guy weld it for me, where the space right under the sleeping quarters was a Vox AC30 height, because Britt always played the AC30 and it would just fit
Exactly.
right in there.
Yeah.
But one thing I feel like when we were starting out, I feel like one really like sort of career that I tell people would be really good to get into is live sound tour managing.
Right. Doing both. Being like,
Both.
Oh, yeah, like a more than a one-trick pony.
Yeah. Because it's two of like the first things bands usually ask for.
Right.
You know, it's
Having someone run sound for them and someone go get the money for them and
Exactly,
take care of the
exactly.
business part, so
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
have to do that.
Exactly. So you are way more marketable and you can hit a lot more tours if you can do front of house and you can do tour managing.
That's some great advice.
Yeah.
So when you get an itinerary to go, hey, we're going to go on tour,
Yeah.
I'm sure you look at that and you're like, oh yes, we're going to this. I'm so glad we're going back here, whether it's a city or a venue. Do you have a city or a
I don't
venue?
know if I'm that excited about it, but I love your enthusiasm.
You know.
Yeah. I'm like,
Oh, this
4
is long.
weeks?
Yeah, but I'm sure you still, even in that 4 weeks, are like, yes, we're going to hit this spot or this venue. I'm looking forward to going back there.
Yeah.
What would that? What
would that spot be? I feel like Red Rocks. We played Red Rocks. I mean, that place is like amazing. You know, there was this place we did in Berlin called Funk House, which is probably one of my top 3 favorite shows with Spoon, where it's like an old East German radio station, like massive, like you know, really, really big. So they have a lot of little studios and artist places.
Sounds cold.
It is very cold, yeah. Dreary, yeah. But the room we played in was in the round. So we were down in this sort of area down here, and then there was steps where people would stand or sit all around us. So, you know, we had never played a venue like that before, where, you know, we're playing and there's like someone directly behind you, you know.
Wow.
And the energy there was like ridiculous. It was really, really fun.
So is there a place that Spoon is big in that you would have never, like, y'all show up in like Liberia or something and y'all are like famous? Like, there's got to be some weird places that y'all have shown up and just been blown away that y'all have a huge audience in this place.
Yeah.
Is there any?
Well, the first place that ever occurred to us was on the Telefono tours. And we toured all over the place in 1996, like everywhere. We would hit almost every city 3 times. You know, it was brutal.
So were y'all touring like a couple hundred days a year at that stage?
Yeah, it was rough. And the reason is because you're always told, like, tour, and more people will come.
Especially in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. But what we found was we would play a city to about 15 people. Next time we went through, there'd be maybe 30 people. The third time, there would be maybe 10. It was weird because what happens is the record business is driven by press. So you go to a town, they write a feature on you. You go there again, there's probably like a little recommended. Third time, they're like, what do you got?
Right.
And it's same record, same everything. Most people find out about it. So from that standpoint, from that point on, we're always like, we were going to tour like major cities and minimal and try to get in and do another record. That's sort of how we were, our philosophy back then. But that being said, on our very first tour, we played Omaha, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And probably like 45 people showed up, and we had never been there before, but it was all the Saddle Creek kids, like Connor Oberst and the Faint were there and everything, and we didn't know who they were, but it was like an amazing time.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So when you come off of tour, how do you wind down? Or do you wind down?
Yeah, not really.
I know you have
really.
a family and like so.
Yeah, no, I don't really wind down. Yeah, I just constantly wind up, I guess. No, I mean, I don't really take a lot of breaks. I go back into the studio. Like, I always have stuff that I need to do, you know, so yeah.
So you don't like go on a cruise or anything like that?
No.
Okay. we got to take one more quick break, and we'll be right back with Jim Eno.
Our ability to keep our community together is ACC's mission and the city's hope.
Oh my goodness, they did an awesome job with this.
Great event, as always.
The excitement is beyond anything that I would expect.
I work here and I'm still blown away by some of the stuff that's in there.
It's like my first time at any college actually, so it's really big.
Feeling excited.
There is so much energy in this space right now.
We've got everything you need, and you can live, you can work, you can play, you can learn.
Hey friends, hola amigos, bienvenidos a otro episodio de Ready, Set, Ascender.
Get ready to meet more talented Ascender students, wonderful mentors, and hear about events happening around ACC in Austin.
Estamos aquí en ACCTV.
Don't think you have time for college? Think again. ACC Online works on your schedule. It's one of the top 20 online colleges in the US. Not to mention how much you'll save compared to other area colleges. And you still get all of the free support services offered online or in person. Your choice. Get credits now to transfer to a 4-year university, or skill up for a new career that you love and that pays. ACC Online, anytime, anywhere.
Welcome back to Campus Spotlight. I'm hanging with Jim Eno from Spoon, and we're going to continue our conversation. So y'all had an extended career. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Like, there's only a handful of bands, honestly, that have had like a 30-year, y'all almost 30 years now, right?
Who's counting, Tim?
I know, but that's amazing to be in, one band and have a career that's so, like, not like too much of this. I mean, although for you, it might be like that, but from an outside perspective, y'all have had a very, like, continual career. Mm-hmm. But, over the years, y'all have had a few lineup changes. I mean, would be expected after 30 years. Exactly. How do those lineup changes influence the direction of the band?
I don't know. Usually we try to find, people that we really like and get along with, because touring is, it's your crew, you're with them every day. So, like, I don't know, I can talk about like the last couple guys, like Alex, when he joined, man, it's almost like, 10 years ago now, I think.
And Alex plays piano, right?
Yeah, keyboards, but also guitar,
Right.
So he's classically trained. So just like to be able to get someone that can play anything on the keyboard. And we use him a lot too for like, hey man, we need some cool stuff, and just let him riff on things and then like grab certain stuff.
Yeah,
he's
that's
like
cool.
Amazing with that. Then with Gerardo Larios, who plays guitar, but also keys, he played keys in Hard Proof Afrobeat,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. And so with him, he went to Berkeley for production and music, but also guitar. So he is like, a great guitar player.
These sound like ringers.
Yeah, exactly. I'm now the weakest link in this band, easily. So, and then when we lost our bass player, Benny is a friend of mine, and he plays like with Lee Fields and played with Sharon Jones and Charles Bradley and stuff. So he's more on the soul side, but
that's cool.
He has a really great feel and is super cool. So I've been lucky to have us bring in some of our my friends, that I knew before. So
yeah. That's cool. So your latest album, 10th record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10,
yeah. Lucifer on the Sofa. Mm-hmm. I know that y'all recorded this all pretty much at Public Hi-Fi, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You want to talk a little bit about the new record?
Sure. It's great. Yeah, we're really happy with it. We did a lot of it live, or tried to do as much as we could live, like you were talking about, like get everyone in a room and hash out our parts before. One of the reasons is that we noticed when we play a record that we've recorded live for a whole cycle, we end up liking more the live versions than the recorded versions, because we're hammering stuff
and
out.
You're playing it over and over again.
Yeah,
and
we're
you're
discovering things like
Right.
there may be a cool little fill or a little vocal line or a little keyboard part that comes out of nowhere that we're like, oh man, that was sick. Let's keep that in, you know. And then we realize that, so we're like, maybe we have to try to bring back some of that, you know, like old school recording where you rehearse, you know your parts, and then you track it together, you know.
So do y'all ever, I'm assuming you're working in Pro Tools, right?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
well, we'll do some tape, but mostly Pro Tools, yeah.
Okay. So if you have an awesome verse on one take and, you know, have some cool fills, and then and on another take, you know, maybe you use would you use the second verse of another take?
Yes,
or?
yeah, we would still comp stuff together, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but, you know, a lot of it happens to be the majority of one take, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I definitely know I want to talk a little bit about this. This is not about Spoon, but about Project Traction.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Project Traction.
Sure. So during the pandemic, I was looking for something else to do. I like mentorship, and I like teaching and stuff like that. I'm a Grammy mentor. I do stuff at UT sometimes. Love to do something here.
Yes, we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Y'all heard it. He's coming to.
Yeah, I do. For the past 6 years, I think, I've done a class for the University of Ohio where I have 5 students come down, where I produce tracks for a week, and they like assist and help. And then at the end of the session, we have breakdowns of everything I did, and it's pretty cool. The students love it, and like I said, I've been doing it for 6 or 7 years. So I was looking for the next thing to do, and I read a statistic that was like producers or engineers in the US is about 5 to 10% women.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's insane. I didn't know it was that low. I work with like so many badass women musicians, and I also don't think it's a far stretch to go from being a musician to being a producer.
Right.
You know, I'm not a songwriter, and I feel like being a producer, you just have to be able to guide the process, be creative. You know, I feel like being a musician, you're producing a lot of stuff anyway, you know.
Right.
So I decided that I would start a program to maybe try to get that number up, you know. So it's called Project Traction. It's basically for female and non-binary musicians to allow them to get traction into the recording and production fields. So what I'll do is like, I'll pick an artist that I've worked with, say like Cam Franklin from The Suffers. And we work together, we pick a band, then we ask that band for demos, and her and I produce a track with that band. So she gets production credit, she gets to work in my studio, I mentor her, we discuss the whole process, timelines, and everything like that. And then she can use it as a jumping off point for maybe getting into the production field, you know, as a career move. You always want to diversify as much as possible.
Yeah.
So, I have 6 tracks done. We're doing hopefully a vinyl release of those 6. And I already have like maybe 4 new musicians who are going to do the production for the next volume.
I saw that you have actually one of our new faculty members, Sarah Hauser.
Sarah,
I saw that
she
you're
did
working.
One, she did one. Yeah.
Did you already finish that?
Finished it. It's released. Yeah.
Oh,
it's Lizzie Lehman. It's called Sweet Relief.
Okay.
And that's out already, and that will be on the versions. Yeah.
So are you going to put out a Project Traction compilation?
Yeah.
Is that
the first 6 are done, and then I'm going to do a vinyl release with Gold Rush vinyl, yeah.
So how can, if people want to be part of Project Traction, do you find them, or can they reach out to you and say, Jim, I'm totally...
Yeah, they can reach out. Unfortunately, right now, everything goes through me.
Right.
And so, because I'm the only producer, but this is a model that is like scalable. Right. You know, the thing I'm trying to, like when I talk to my male production friends, the idea that like we work with women and we can identify someone who we're like hell yeah, you could produce. Like, I can see it.
Yeah.
That we should be following through on that and partnering with them and getting them the experience, as opposed to, like, I talked to some women and they're like, men always reach out to me and they're like, do you know any, woman that does this? And it's like, well, you should be doing it yourself. It's on us to bring, more women into our fields, in my opinion.
agree.
So I feel like we need to be proactive about it.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that. We try to do that in our program here too, and I've really seen over the last 20 years, I would have like one woman in my audio engineering class, and sometimes it's like 50% now.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's working.
Yeah,
and so I appreciate you.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a way to make a difference and get that number up, and so. Interns, it's hard because interns, it's hard to get them to move up because it takes so long. So the idea of moving a musician,
it's already kind of established
exactly.
and doing it.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of difference. So you talked a little bit about earlier about, or you alluded to being a Grammy. Remember, I know you're VP, right? Are you vice president right now?
No,
the Texas
I'm not.
Grammy?
No, I'm not. No, I'm on the board.
Oh, you're on the board.
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about that involvement with the.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I feel like, they have sort of initiatives like, female producers. I'm in the P&E wing, and, I don't know, it's just a good resource to be able to be involved with. Like, they have things like Atmos seminars and things like that you can sit in and learn, but I don't know. I mean, it's been fun so far, and
Does Spoon? I know. I was trying to research whether y'all have ever had a Grammy, and y'all have never had a. That's just amazing. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I read a lot of things that said y'all should have got a Grammy, but y'all didn't.
Right.
For specific things, and I was just like, I can't believe. Anyway, y'all deserve a Grammy.
Oh, thanks, Tim. Thank you. Yeah, you do too.
Thanks. So I know y'all are playing Austin City Limits. I guess it's called at the Moody Theater now. It's been called so many different things. Yeah. How has it changed from when y'all first played, or how do you feel like the first time you played versus like you go play it now?
Yeah, it's always that thing like, wow, this place is pretty rad, right when you walk in and everything and you play. But it's like a comfortable place for us to play. It's cool because it's fairly big, but the sight lines are all really great, and you feel really close to the crowd, which is cool. It's a cool venue as opposed to being like sort of set back,
Yeah, to me, it's always been like if you're playing Austin City Limits, like. As an Austin musician, like that's pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
That's better than a Grammy.
Yeah, exactly. Totally.
Hey, so I want to thank you for coming out today, Jim.
Yeah,
it's been awesome.
Yeah,
you
thanks
shared.
for having me.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you could make it out, and you shared a lot of insight on a lot of topics that our audience would be interested in.
Awesome.
So
cool. Hope it was somewhat helpful. Yeah.
It was very helpful.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.